So today is Wednesday, April 6th. This is a regular meeting of the Advisory Committee on Sustainability. We have a quorum, and the meeting is being called to order at 1:04. This meeting is being held virtually only on the town's GoToMeeting platform as indicated on the agenda and as posted with the town clerk and on the town's website. So the first item on the agenda is I just wanted to give a little update. I just have one thing, and I just wanted to mention that one of our members, Pam Sparkman, has decided to step off the committee at this time. And I just wanted to, she's been on our committee for the last more than 2 years. And I just wanted to thank her for her service and wish her well. So the only other thing I wanted to mention is given that we had changed our longstanding meeting time, to accommodate her schedule, I just wanted to throw it out there and see if anyone wanted to change the meeting time back or if you prefer this later time.
Change it back.
Kathy?
I would prefer earlier than 1 if it is possible. 12:30.
I'm neutral.
12.
Okay.
Neutral.
Cliff is neutral. So Christine, do you want to make a motion with a time? And
Well, I'd like to know what Craig and Egg think, because you guys, I mean, I don't work, so
I'm neutral.
yeah, Craig said he's neutral. Oh gosh.
Ed, do you have a preference for time for the meetings?
I do not. 12 was always nice.
Okay, I motion for 12. We move it back to 12.
I second.
Aye.
Aye. That is unanimous.
Okay, great. So I'm sorry, what was the time, Christine?
12.
12 o'clock. Okay, great. So we'll go back. I'll send a note to the town clerk indicating the change in our meeting time. The second item on our agenda is to approve the minutes from the April 6th special meeting. Christine forwarded the minutes and I attached them to the agenda. Does anyone have any comments?
I read them. I commented a typo to her, and I would make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Cliff. All in favor? Great, thank you. So that's done. The next item on our agenda is communications with like organizations and or individuals that might have some relevance to our committee. Does anyone have anything that they would like to report here? Kathy?
I had the opportunity to attend yesterday's Sustainable Fairfield County meeting, and there were a number of conversations that I just want to throw out to our advisory committee, and a little bit we'll talk about later with the legislative update. But quite simply, where am I going to start from? Start from the bottom here. There is a zoning. No, I'm not going to do the zoning one. I'm sorry, reading all my own notes. There
Okay.
is going to be an electric police vehicle interactive webinar that will be taking place June 29th. This is being sponsored by Live Green, which is an organization that supports Sustainable Fairfield County. The webinar is specifically for police staff, police officers, or municipal fleet people. It's going to include representatives from Connecticut, Kansas, Colorado, as well as the Westport Chief of Police, the Fairfield Chief of Police, and a lieutenant from Ann Arbor, Michigan. The purpose is to open a conversation about information that has been gained on electric vehicles and police fleets, and that is open not to us as a committee, but would be open to Ed, or if there was a way that we can, there will be an invitation, provide that invitation. The background on that is that Westport has purchased not one, but 2 Tesla chase cars as they're replacing fleet vehicles. They found the savings on the first one to justify the second one, and Fairfield is looking very carefully at Ford Mustangs. I do not know the timing on police fleet movements in the state of, in the town of Darien, but this would be an opportunity to hear from people in the industry that drive those cars as to what the trends are and what the challenges are. And Ed, would it be appropriate to send in the invitation to you?
Yeah, that's fine. I'd actually like to jump on that. Had a nice conversation with Kate during the budget season and how
Okay.
she'd like me to next year start to work towards maybe converting some of our inspection vehicles here throughout town, one at a time or two at a time, into electricals, whether they're full hybrids or full EVs or hybrids, those type of things, which we does want us to work towards that for next year's
Both
budget request.
fabulous. And both Westport and Fairfield Beyond the Police are working on that. So certainly contacts made through that particular webinar or the people at Live Green can assist you with that. This was very specific to police, as I guess. Apparently it's a really good ride. I could be funny. The other thing that I wanted to just mention is we'll be talking about the bill that affects electric school buses, that puts that need to plan over the next 10 years on buses in place. There are five companies in our area: First Student, Durham, DATCO, and a couple others that all received buses from the VW settlement grant. First Student has 16. I think DATCO has 10, and the list goes on. But there are new grants that are going to be made available for distressed communities and then other communities beyond, and that's going to fill into the legislation that passed the Connecticut legislature this year. So I'll when I give a legislative update, I'll talk about that. And the last thing, which I know Carolyn's been more involved with or heard more about, was the 5 cent per nip rebate that returns to municipalities that was enacted last year. So Darien will be receiving funds or has received funds that will come on a 6-month basis as a rebate for the 5 cent charge on nips sold in liquor stores in town. And that money is to be used for litter control, waste management. And don't know if you've yet been able to find what came to Darien, if we can use that in planning for waste reduction or litter pickup. In larger communities, it's turned into a significant amount of money. I don't know what it will be in ours, but want to just throw that out there, that everybody is looking to find out what their fund is and establish in each community. In a large community like Stratford, they're estimating about, I don't know, $30,000 twice a year. I don't think that will be the type of money we'll get in Darien, but it could be significant to put towards some waste or litter reduction program. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Kathy. Does anyone else have anything under this category? Otherwise, I'll just report I did attend the Green Team meeting the other day. There's really not much to report from that. They're planning to march in the Memorial Day parade if anyone would like to join them. And also, I did speak with someone from the Chamber of board member on the Chamber of Commerce. The Center for Eco-Technology they have been hired by the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to provide consulting services to Connecticut businesses to help them reduce waste. And it's at no cost to the businesses. It's funded by a grant from the department, from DEEP. And I just wanted to mention that. I also publicized it via social media some time ago when I first heard about it, but I'll be doing that again just to get it out there. And hopefully that message will reach members of the chamber as well. So that's all that I have here.
Carolyn, Carolyn, I
Yes.
had one date that I see on my notes that I'd highlighted that I didn't read, that members of the public might be interested in. Wilton holds a, as you said, when you said the recycling, Wilton holds a zero waste fair, which
Mm,
provides a lot of information to the community for
yes.
different ways to reduce waste in all aspects of daily living at the home level as well as the municipal level. And their date is June 5th. And if anyone is interested, they can look for well, I think it's Wilton Go Green and the Zero
Yeah.
Waste Fair on June 5th in Wilton.
Thank you for mentioning that, because I had intended to, and I forgot to put that on my list. Yeah, no,
Bottom of
that's
my notes.
I've attended that event. It's usually I always walk away knowing more than when I walked in. Under recycling, I think Cliff, you may have something to report about recycling center volunteers.
So we've on numerous occasions talked about the need to educate people about what goes into single stream and different strategies to do it. And one that has come up a couple of times, probably me bringing it up, was to have a couple of people at the transfer station on a couple busy days who hand out a card for the food program, making sure people know about the food program, who offer to help people break down their cardboard boxes and have them go into the right receptacle. And in the process, sort of say, whoops, that doesn't actually go in here. I mean, not to be a policeman, but to sort of help people, point them to the sign. I mean, I had, and wearing these yellow vests makes a huge difference, because without it, they say, who the F are you, and get out of my life. But with it, they can be much more responsive. The day that I was up there doing the compost giveaway, since it was so quiet at the compost giveaway, I wandered over, and a fellow's coming with his kid, and they've got these two big boxes, and I offered to help break them down. Well, they were full of styrofoam, and I said, oops, the styrofoam has to go up there. And he couldn't have been nicer about it. He wanted to know what the right thing was to do, and I pointed him to the sign. Anyway, I've gone to the Darien Men's Association to see if I could get some volunteers. I think I have 3. I may have more. I'm hoping that some of you on the committee might also have an interest in this, and that we could in the month of June pick 3 or 4 or 5 days and do this work for I don't know, 2-hour shifts or something. So I'm planning to do this with however many volunteers I can get, and if any of you are, and I'm totally flexible. If it's going to be an hour or 2 hours, it's all good. But if any of you are willing and able to participate in that, you would be very welcome.
Great, Cliff. I know that made a huge difference when you walked over there and you were talking to people. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for talking to the members of the Darien Men's Association about this. Also, I just wanted to give a quick update on the Connecticut, the Sustainable Materials Management Grant that we applied for in March. We did get an email back on April 29th. There have been 27 applications submitted. They're still in the process of evaluating them, and they anticipate announcing the grantees sometime in mid to late May. So we are just waiting to hear. I think we've mentioned in the past, we weren't one of the most competitive applicants, because they were really looking for communities that were willing to have an element of unit-based pricing, a trial of unit-based pricing, and we didn't have that in our application. Ours was mainly just to make some infrastructure changes that would improve our food scrap drop-off program, and also to be able to offer a satellite location for people who either don't have access to the recycling center or just don't visit it very often. So as soon as we hear anything on that, we'll let you know. The compost giveaway was held on April 23rd and April 30th. We had 20 cubic yards of really excellent food scrap compost that came from New Milford Farms. It was given away over over those 2 days. We had many dozens of residents who came and took a couple buckets of compost and were very happy with it. Very thankful for the Give Back program. So I just wanted to thank Dan and Cliff and Christine, because in addition to some of the members of the Beautification Commission who were very generous with their time in helping out, we couldn't have done this without your help. So just wondering if any of you have anything that you would like to, Dan isn't here today, but if either Cliff or Christine, if you have anything that you'd like to add about the compost giveaway.
Oh, it went really well. I thought it was very well received by the public. Not everybody was participating in the food scrap program, and we didn't have that many people that tried to take advantage of it. There are obviously a few, but it went smoothly. And the guys, I have to say, Ed, your guys at the transfer station were amazing. When Caroline and I went over the Monday after the first Saturday and asked them to because there were people trying to come and take it, and so they helped us completely cover it, make it to where it did not look like something you were supposed to be doing that week. And they couldn't have been kinder. And I think the whole process went great. I was very impressed with it this year.
Glad to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, no, they were fantastic. And so I wholeheartedly think we should do this every year.
It's a nice event. I mean, most of the communities that have food scrap recycling programs do this. So, it's a nice benefit for residents.
Yes, Kathy?
Just a quick question, Christine. Did you or anyone that volunteered, thank you for your time. I did not, was not available. Did it lead to anyone asking how to participate in the food scrap recycling itself?
It
whether
did
it
lead
was,
to some conversations, yes. And whether they did it or not, I don't know. And we had the postcards there, but there were definitely a lot of conversations. The people that were not participating asking where it comes from and all that. And so it was, it's interesting.
Would it have made any sense to have the buckets there that we sell, or a setup of what it looks
we
like?
did
or
have, I
something?
don't know. No, I don't think nobody was really there for that, but it helped. We had the bucket and we were actually using that for people to gauge how much they were taking. We're like, all right, you can take this 2 buckets of this, and this is what you get if you join the food scrap program. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to maybe have just a little table right there if we do it again next year.
I'm just wondering. Yeah.
This is the bucket. This is what you get for your kit. QR code linking to town hall to do it.
Yeah.
So Kathy, when we offered this, when we did this program in 2019, we did have some of the food scrap kits to sell, and we did sell quite a few while we were doing this program. But remember, our food scrap program was still fairly new at that point. And but the buckets do also kind of attract people when they see them kind of stacked up. We actually did not have any buckets to sell this time, which is why we didn't have any there. We've had a huge delay with getting our supply of the green buckets, so we're still awaiting. We ordered them several weeks ago, and we're still awaiting delivery on those. So we would have had a few there, yes. Otherwise,
yeah. I just more thinking of it as a way to expand the usage by people seeing, that don't necessarily pay any attention to the bins, the drop-off bins, that might see that and be.
If we have bins next year, we can beef it up. If we do it again, that'd be great.
Or a QR code is on a poster is great too.
Yes.
Everybody has their phone.
So the only other thing for me to report under this category is just as I always do, our food scrap, how many tons of food scraps we diverted in the month of April. It was down a little bit. Again, just like it was in February when there was the winter break, with the spring break in April, it's just under 3 tons, and it's usually just under 4 tons. So those school breaks do they really do make a difference in terms of how much we divert. So the next, anything else under recycling? Anything that anyone wants to bring up? Okay. The next item on our agenda is the swap shop. And Dan wasn't able to be here today, but he did call me, and the only thing he wanted to report here is just that it's been very slow recently. That's all he had to report on the swap shop. So
Did you folks get a chance to catch any of the RTM meeting the other night?
I did not.
There was a resident. She came to the meeting, I guess, to speak during public comment about some of the ongoings that were happening over at the swap shop. And I haven't had a chance to see it yet, but I had one of my Public Works Committee RTM members want to speak with me about it, and I missed it too, so I didn't get to see the whole thing. But it's going to start to become a question now with regards to the actions of our volunteers over there. This resident, I have met with her on 2 separate occasions regarding the volunteers over there. Thought we had settled a lot of the things over there, but I think she has a very strong opinion about the way it should be run over there and how she's not being treated fairly. So with that all said, we may be hearing more about this maybe the next couple months.
Okay.
And I will see if I can grab Dan before the end of this week, just to kind of review with him our practices over there to make sure that we're staying in good standing with the rest of our residents.
Okay. I'll try to tune in, use TV 79 and go back and watch the RTM meeting and see what's said about it as well.
Yeah.
I have, in the meantime, we had talked about this last time. I've been in the process of creating, just to kind of take the pressure off the swap shop, because it's limited space and access. I have been creating a list of alternative donation sites, and I do have a fairly lengthy list, which I'll circulate to everyone. Of course, it's going to be, and it's not going to be a complete list. People are always going to say, "Oh, I know of this organization," which is great. But we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different places that I've gotten information on. Some of them actually will come to your home to pick stuff up, and so I think if we can put this on the town website and publicize it and create a list that we can keep at the swap shop, that when residents come, if they want to take a picture of it with their phones, they can. It'll have the links and the names of these other organizations and how they can donate to them. That might take a little bit of the pressure off the swap shop. The swap shop still does, most of these organizations will not take some things that you can bring to the swap shop. So the swap shop does still fulfill a need. Like, for example, open board games and stuffed toys and, things like that. Like there are really no other organizations that will, if you have, opened containers of office supplies, but you didn't use it all, you can't really donate that stuff to like Goodwill or to the thrift store, but you can bring it to the swap shop and people do take that stuff. So I will be circulating this as soon as I get it into a narrative. So that will hopefully go up on our town website for people to refer to as well.
And just to remind everybody, I'm going to eventually have to open up that swap shop on Saturday.
Oh, please.
I've been back and forth with the first selectman already on this numerous times, and I'm gonna eventually open it. And it'll attract the volunteers. She asked if I needed more, and I want to talk to Dan before I confirm that, maybe there were some gentlemen from the men's club. I think Cliff, she had mentioned that could be interested in working there too or volunteering. But I did have a thought when you were mentioning the refund from the small liquor bottle things that we're
Yeah, the NIPS.
supposed to get. Maybe that would be something that could be used to provide traffic control for the swap shop on a Saturday. It's part of our sustainability. It's part of our recycling, if you will. I think that may be something that could look to support that effort if I could actually find out if we got anything. So,
right. So Yeah, we
You
had
can-
voted, just to remind everyone, someone made a motion at the last meeting that we recommend to the first selectman that if the swap shop were to reopen on Saturdays, that it be with a traffic police officer to direct traffic. And so I did send an email, and Ed, that's a good idea. So we'll look into that.
Yep.
You control your budget, Ed. Find the money.
I may have to cut down on the drainage reviews that I do.
Oh, no.
Supposed to make a donation back to the town.
We'll find a way to get it open one way or another. But I've been directed to get that open on Saturday, even if it's for reduced hours. Get it open.
Okay. Anything else on that topic? So we'll move on to the next item, just marketing, outreach, and education. I mentioned this last time. I want to mention it again. I think I forwarded to everyone on this committee the first biweekly newsletter that comes out from the first selectman's office. It's a town newsletter. It's got all kinds of information in it. For example, it reminded people that they can now get renewals of their recycling center permits. Also reminded people that if they have prescription drugs that they would like to dispose of properly, that there is a collection bin in the lobby of the Darien police station, open to which you can gain access 24/7, no questions, you just put it in. So it's got little bits of interesting information like that. And if anyone would like to, you can always go on the town website to read it, but if anyone would like it to come to their inbox, you can get on the email list by emailing newsletter@darienct.gov. So I just wanted to mention that. And also, just with regard to our social media, I'm I've been posting on Facebook and Twitter again recently. If anyone wants to help, please feel free to get in touch with me. I could use some help, definitely with some of this. And I know that for some of our application items, they need to be publicized. So please feel free to reach out to me about that.
Carolyn, have you figured out how to post it on Instagram and have it automatically go to Facebook?
So there seems to be, from what I understand from Pam, there is a glitch between that. So if you post, it is not working properly. So
all right, why don't you and I do that offline?
Okay, great. Thank you, Christine.
Sure, of course.
So Energy Task Force, Ed, you had already mentioned, I think that during the budget process, Kate had mentioned that she would like you to, for next year, look into, as you replace vehicles, some of the inspection vehicles and others with electric vehicles or hybrids. Was there anything else that you would like to talk about there?
No, that's it. I think that's the only one I had.
Okay. Just very quickly, moving on to legislative updates. Kathy, you had something that you wanted to report here.
Yes, and pardon me, I actually wrote, so I know reading isn't always great, but to get so that I'm accurate, I'm going to look down at my notes here. The recent inventory of Connecticut greenhouse gases had indicated that Connecticut was not meeting their goals to be on track in 2030 and 2050 for reduction of emissions. And in this year's legislation, they enacted several bills that are aimed at meeting their statutory targets, and that in turn affects the transportation corridor and affects areas like Darien on the transportation corridor when it comes to emissions. So I'm going to give you just a very brief summary of a handful of bills that passed, and one or two of them will require, I think, more looking into in our town, whether it be through the management of the town or the school department. The first was Senate Bill 4, which reduces transportation emissions by by doing a number of things. First, it authorized the adoption of California's medium and heavy duty vehicle standards. Those have been adopted by Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, and others. Specifically, sort of noteworthy to us, it established a matching grant program to help deploy electric school buses, and it set a goal for 100% electric school bus fleet by 2040, with actually an earlier target of 2035 for all electric or alternative fuel. For instance, I know Norwalk had just implemented a propane-based bus system. And so this is going to happen, and it will be happening in the next 10 years. Once again, the information that Live Green and other organizations have developed on this is very, very useful. And I suggest we schedule a moment in time with our counterparts at the Board of Ed to share what we have learned and what the bus companies are doing. Interestingly enough, there are like 8,200 buses in the state of Connecticut, and only one of them right now is electric, and 43 are on their way with the settlement. So there's a process, and there's a lot of learning relative to infrastructure, electric charging stations, the depots, and all of the bus companies are going through that now with the first set of 43 buses. So when it comes to our planning and contract renewals, this will be something we have to watch. That same bill transitions the state fleets of their light duty vehicles to 100% battery by 2030. And there is an expanded amount of funding for EVs and access to EV charging infrastructure and charging. So there's a lot going on that our town may be able to benefit from in terms of funding. And there's also regulations that are out there that we'll have to plan for. SB 93, a quick one, allows CPACE to finance zero-emission vehicle charging infrastructure on qualifying commercial real property. So there will be some funding for commercial properties to get additional CPACE funding for charging stations. And on a broader note, an act concerning climate change mitigation requires Connecticut to supply 100% of its electricity from zero carbon by 2040. The last couple, which are broader environmental, and I don't know whether our local golf course and our people follow this, but there was an act that prohibits the use of a pesticide chloropyrifos on golf courses. There's an energy sort of tariff program that's going to make it increase the scalability of solar projects. And then probably as I read down them and was looking at my notes, Carolyn, last but not least, House Bill 5142 created an extended producer responsibility program for certain gas cylinders, which was the program to provide a way to dispose of the small propane cylinders.
To recycle, to properly recycle.
Properly recycle.
Yes.
I'm going to get
Been
the words
waiting
wrong.
for this. It took 3 years, but I literally cheered when I heard that had passed. We have had multiple inquiries from residents about how to dispose of or properly recycle those little 1-pound canisters that you can buy
Yes.
for cooking stoves, and also, things like the helium canisters that you use for balloons and so forth. So now, we'll figure out how this is going to be implemented, and we'll let residents know.
Right,
But
in
it
our own
will be at
community.
no cost to the town. It's an extended producer responsibility program. It'll be at no cost to the town. So I'm really happy and excited about that. It took 3 years, but it will also
Is that
save.
passed officially, or we think
It did pass.
I've only read you the things that have passed. These
Yeah,
are
the
the
session
bills
has
that have
ended,
passed.
Craig, and
It's ended.
these are ones that passed. The one that didn't pass that I just quickly wanted to mention was there was one limiting the use of polystyrene, styrofoam, and that'll be back. But I attended
the Tesla bill still hasn't passed, so they can't do direct
sales. The direct sales of electric vehicles. That probably I attended a sort of just to take 30 seconds. The chairs of the Environment Committee gave sort of like a review of the session, and they said that probably, because so many different manufacturers are coming up with their own electric vehicles, that's one that they're not sure will fly. But they said that next year, and I mentioned this to Ed, the emphasis is going to be on waste reduction. Like there's going to be a number of bills that are proposed that have to do with waste reduction because of the waste crisis that we're facing in the state right now. So thank you, Kathy, for that.
Yeah, just to your point on the polystyrene, that did not pass, but
Right.
it passed the Senate and it wasn't taken up by the House. But that is meant to cut down on the polystyrene pollution, which gets back to waste.
Yeah.
And it's meant for restaurants, caterers, and schools.
And schools, yeah.
And I was on a call with one of the, I believe, sponsors of that bill, and that bill will be back up for discussion. They feel there's been an opening of the mindset of our legislatures to really address some of these needs.
Well, just remember, it took the plastic bag ban about 5 or 6 years to pass. So it doesn't always happen, the first or second or even third time.
And where it gets back to our coordinating with our own, our school department, is that isn't going to go in effect in 2024, but as that department is going to be looking out at their contracts and their facilities, that any polystyrene that we may or may not still have in the schools is probably eventually going to be, restricted out.
So thank you for that. So moving on to the Sustainable CT review of action items. I'm not really sure where we want to start with this. I guess the first question I have is, a couple people have mentioned that they think we should have a meeting before the next regularly scheduled meeting. And Craig, yes. Okay. So just wanted to...
I'll do it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that would be... so that would be the 25th of May. Does that work for everyone? Wednesday at noon?
Yeah.
I move to have a special meeting on, did you say yes or no?
It works for me. I'm throwing it out if it works for everyone else. Craig,
Christine, you good?
do I have a second? Okay,
Kathy.
all in favor
Kathy
of
seconds.
12 o'clock on Wednesday, May 25th? Okay, great. So we'll do that. Meeting will be just to go over the application. So I just wanted to mention, I did update one area with the information that I have so far. It reminded me of how sort of cumbersome this application process is, in the sense that everything that you put in, you have to have in order everything that you want to submit, and you kind of have to have it like written out first before you input it, because things don't shift once you put them in. As you put them in, they automatically go to the end. And if you're keeping anything from 2019 and you're just editing the title, the number of it, for example, it still stays in place because it was entered in 2019. So I find it a little frustrating, but I think right now what's important is just to get the information in there, and then we can always make it pretty afterwards. Where would you, Craig?
Sure. You had mentioned to me you're worried about our optimize for equity requirement 1.1, which if we don't do, disqualifies us for recertification, even if we do all of the other work. So since that's our most current emergency, I thought we ought to spend some time there.
Okay.
Kathy, I don't know if you had any further ideas on that. You were generally the equity person, but if you don't, I have an idea.
Well, I don't necessarily have an idea, because the idea has to relate to another action step that you apply the toolkit to. So with that being said, let me just give you the update. I spoke to one of the program directors just a couple of days ago, and she's trying to get us a new equity coach to help us or look at our things. The person that I was trying to connect with never worked out. So Jessica Leclerc has agreed to have someone else reach out to us in Darien. So
Great.
that will be somebody to run by whatever our idea is and make sure it all works. And we should have that person by next week. And at the same time, the fellows like Chad and the woman that worked with us will be on board after Memorial Day. So our ability to work with them and track things down will be for the months of June and July. So if you have a place where we could start to apply this, I'm all ears.
Sure.
Let's, you know.
So what we're talking about is, as Kathy has said in the past, optimizing at least one or more of our intended action items through the lens of equity. And
Correct.
there's a 14-page equity toolkit pamphlet that's on the website. I am showing you page 13 of that pamphlet, which gives you a 5-step summary of what they want you to do, which is basically figure out who lives in your community and who might be considered minority portions of that community that might not have access to some of the things you're doing. Figure out how to talk to them about the sustainable CT application and specific action items, and then figure out if there are actions that can be taken to change how that action item is delivered, and then summarize that for the toolkit. Did I do a good job kind of explaining that in summary, Kathy?
Yes, you did. And I've done the one because there was all kinds of information made available to us from an equity study. So the kind of the layout of the community is done, and identifying who we would want to work with on what task is
Now,
that next
we
step.
did this for last time for the farmers market. Is that correct?
We did it for
Yeah.
two different things. We did it for the farmers market and also for people who didn't have, for whom it was a financial burden to get a recycling center permit.
The
We
swap
worked
shop
with
was the first one that we got, and we did that
Yeah.
in collaboration with the Health
Okay.
Alley and Health and Human
So
Services.
we've talked about this one before, and I think it might be a good target to at least go through this process. And I think there are some things that we could do, and that is we are again applying for credit for, I'm trying to find it, I had it a sec, I don't know if it's 9.3 anymore, but recycle additional materials and compost organics. I believe we're applying for that again. That's under your bailiwick, Carolyn. But I wonder if that is a good target, right? Because now there is a barrier to enter the use of that program. Again, it's behind the gate of the recycling center, and it requires you to drive there and have a permit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We've already identified, multifamily housing. Individuals don't generally have permits. Certainly, the situation becomes exacerbated in our affordable housing communities, where maybe the additional cost of driving and or having a permit is another barrier. So I thought that seems to me like a good one to target, and maybe we could talk to the Darien Housing Authority, and I know the Darien Housing Authority has resident members, and talk to them about, can we talk to residents talk to residents about the program, and then talk to residents that may be using the recycling center or may not be using the recycling center, and then talk about how if there's anything the town can do to facilitate more access to our composting and our recycling. Because it's not really just composting, it's any of the other things too. It's the batteries and the light bulbs and the electronics and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, which you can do at the recycling center, which again has these two barriers of, well, I just take it out to the collected area and it goes away, and I'm not going to figure out how to drive there or whatever,
So let me sort of play on to that as a possibility again. I mean, those things work with our equity study when you look at the people that, whether it's by income or those not having cars or seniors, and those things all do play in. Absolutely. So if you were to say so, and thinking of a couple that I heard described at some of the training, you might have a food compost bin all the time or once in a while come to the housing authority or to a senior housing, Or you might have a day when you would pick up batteries and things like that at a place. There are
The
different
extra
ways
stuff,
it could
yeah.
do the extra stuff. So there would be a
Because
number of
the housing authority
approaches to
has,
that.
and the housing authority has management companies. So again, if we have this communication, if we have this conversation, maybe they can do that once a month. Hey, the first of every
Correct.
month, put these 10 things out. We'll make sure they get to the right place, you know?
Correct. So there would, it would be a collaboration somehow to provide services that our town provides to every member of the community.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm not sure with whom you'd start, whether you'd start with the Human Services Department, or whether you'd start with Ed, or whether you'd start with the Housing Authority.
I'm going to talk to Ed right now. He's going to be very supportive. Ed's going to be very supportive of our sustainable CT application and our desire to recycle more things in town.
Yes,
Beyond that, obviously our human services director is phenomenal, and she's a great contact point to talk to try to figure out who you should talk to. So there is good. I would also try to talk to the housing authority, and maybe the forum is the Town Hall Homes, the Royal, which is senior affordable multifamily housing, right? So it checks a lot of different boxes for for a town that is predominantly single family housing.
Yeah, I was going to play devil's advocate a little bit with regard to
I'm going to shade you with my optimism.
Okay, good. No, I was just going to say some of the residents who live in multifamily housing, so the only deterrent to them getting a permit is this, that they're not willing to pay the $40.
Yeah.
I think we had discussed that if they live in an environment where their material is picked up by a hauler, whether it's a single family home or a development, they are entitled to the reduced fee permit. So, they're presumably the things that are mandated to be recycled by the state, like paper and cardboard and that sort of thing, are being picked up. It's the batteries and the extra things.
So here's
that
my
are not.
my pitch is, let's shoot for a study case. We might as well make that study case the Royal.
Well, I like your suggestion about the Royal. I hadn't thought about that.
And then really the buyer can create the change they want to see. I would have to imagine that even if you went to the other end and talked about homeowners at Kensett, kind of high-end townhouse condos, why wouldn't they be negotiating with their hauler to say, we want to be able to recycle these 10 things. Will you do that for us once a month? That would be something super simple to do in a negotiated contract and bring that service to them, which I'm guessing the majority would welcome. So I say use it as a test case, just like everything else. If it goes well, we can proliferate.
Given that the equity was really my first responsibility, Craig, who would you recommend specifically?
Having good conversation. It's always good to have a conversation again with human resources or human services, because she just knows a lot of people and knows who to talk to. So she just might be a good consigliere on it.
But do you know the structure for the Royal?
I would go through the housing authority. I know there's a management company there, but I think the housing authority, you'd want to kind of have their endorsement to go start probing and asking and offering to do a presentation to their residents on all the things that you can do at the recycling center and whether or not they're interested, and you work through the equity toolkit.
Yeah, and it would work with the data about our community and where the people that are not served by certain things are. That property and those residents would meet that. So if there's an interest in finding a way to add those services, it would seem to make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And again, how can we revise things, work with things, change things, work in the town, be helpful in that regard, they'll all get worked out.
Mm-hmm. And we may be able to redo it. I don't know if the farmers market for the summer transportation would be a second. I don't know if we can get credit for that a second time, and I know Cliff, you'd said it.
I believe that the conclusion was we cannot.
Okay. Okay.
So
Cool.
can't get rolling.
That was in the spreadsheet from Chad.
From
Chad.
Chad. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And just one other thing, I mean, if we do end up getting, these funds from the grant that we applied for, the Sustainable Materials Management Grant, that did have provision for having an off-site collection of food scraps. So we would have to decide, where the best place to have that would be, but that would give the opportunity to people who don't have access to a recycling center. So hopefully fingers crossed, we get something from them.
So excuse me, coming back, what we did with the farmer's market can't count, but if we did the same thing with something else, it could count. So if we found that seniors couldn't get to the transfer station to bring their stuff they want to recycle, At Home in Darien might very well be willing to drive them there to do that if they can get into the recycling center.
All seniors get Cliff. Anyone over 65 gets a free permit.
Right, but I think that the people who are driven for At Home in Darien use the At Home in Darien vans.
Oh, right, the vehicle. Yes, of course. I see.
So I don't know if they're, they would certainly be happy to drive somebody and drop them, but I don't know that they can go in and that they can carry all their stuff. So that might not be it may not work, but the concept of offering to get people there, seniors there, is something that can be applied elsewhere if we are doing something else. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know if is that clear?
Yeah, no, that's good.
As clear as mud. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, this gives me a very specific action item to discuss with the equity coach, because we don't necessarily need the coaching on how to look at the makeup of your town. That part we've done. It would be how to apply it and what would make sense. And Craig, thank you. That's kind of what I've been looking for, as someone who had some place in the application where it wasn't just to check a box. It would really make sense and provide value to people that do not have access to a service. Carolyn and I had been talking about, were there any parks and recreation services or things that could somehow be extended? And if this doesn't work, that's another place to look. But again, it would be related to an action that was in the application. So this seems to make sense.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Craig, for that. Good idea. We have less than 5 minutes left. Is there anything else about the application that Craig?
Yeah, the only other question I had, I just read through all my ones again. I haven't done any work in the last month. I will try to do all the work that I can do in the next 2 weeks before we meet again. I'm still feeling pretty confident about 9 out of 10 of the stuff, 10 of the things that I was doing.
Okay.
It requires some action by the town and some other folks. But my question was for DPW, for Ed, really for Tony. How is the process on the
7.1?
7.1, the benchmark and track energy usage going?
He has made some really good strides over the last couple of weeks. I talked to him this morning because I knew we were going to meet. He had a couple items that were left. He had submitted to the Connecticut, the Yukon folks already again for a second time, and he was going to be speaking with them. But I will have him at the next meeting on the 25th and making sure that it's still moving forward. Okay.
Yeah, just a reminder. That's another one of those. If we don't get these points in that category, everything falls apart.
I gotcha.
Yeah, I think those are the only two that we really, I don't think there's any danger of us not securing points in any of the other categories. Anybody having any trouble with anything that they thought would be easy that they're finding isn't quite as easy as they thought it would be? Great. So,
but I think there's something that is begging to be addressed, and that is the things that were assigned to Pam. I don't believe she's made any progress with them, but I don't know. We would need to determine that. But how are those going to be taken over? Who's going to handle those things?
I'm not sure how many specific items she had put her name next to. We'll figure it out. I know one of them, she had called the nature center. It had to do with an animal inventory, and I know that she had made that call, and it wasn't going to get us any points. So
Yeah, I see her name there.
yeah, I don't know if there were any other ones that she had volunteered for, but
Oh,
we'll
were.
just have to do them.
Yeah.
Pardon, there were? Okay. Well,
Yeah.
we will, I'll take a look at them before the next meeting, and, we'll figure out who can take them.
On the spreadsheet I'm looking at, the only one I see her name on, now maybe there was a new one later than this updated. I see her name on the natural resource and wildlife inventory.
That was the
Well,
one she reported on, and yeah.
No, she was working on another one because I told her she could use the stuff that I had from last year as part of it. I'd have to go back and pull it out. It was, I think, last year's 3.2 or something. This year it's something different. And I had, the way I'd left it with her was, as she was working on it, if she told me which of those documents she wanted updated, I would update them. I'll dig it out and send it to you, Carolyn, and to Kathy as the project sort of supervisor.
Okay. Great. So our application is due in just about 3 months, but because of my own summer plans, I have a deadline of August 1st. So we have a lot to do in the next couple months, and I'm really looking forward to getting the fellows after Memorial Day. They were so critical to our success last time. So anyone else have anything that they would like to say before we adjourn?
I think you're all awesome.
We're all off?
Awesome. Totally different.
You are too, Craig.
Totally.
You're awesome too.
Oh, okay. Great. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
Just before you adjourn, the new action item that she had was 4.2.
Okay.
Wait, hold on. That's mine, isn't it?
I have it as, well, yeah, as of
To
last.
support arts and creative culture.
Yes, I have that under you.
Well, there are multiple 4.2s, right?
There could be,
Several
yes.
parts, yes. You know what, Cliff? I'll email you.
Okay.
And let's chat.
And our spreadsheet on Google Sheets is still based on last year's order, not this year's order.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I'm looking at this year's spreadsheet, 4.2, support arts and creative.
Yeah, it's
It
the same
has
one.
PS, Pam
That's
Sparkman.
Pam.
Yeah.
The one on the spreadsheet I'm looking at says Christine.
Yeah, mine too.
You
Well,
know what?
I just opened this off of the Google Drive today.
I'm looking at it right now.
Wow.
There's the long form and the short form. Right?
I'm looking
I
at
was
the
just
long
gonna say
form.
that.
Oh, I look at the short form.
I look at the long form.
Okay. I have never updated the long form. I have only updated the short form.
Well, it's the opposite for me.
Okay. So there's some communication breakdown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pam. Thank you.
Now we know we can adjourn.
Okay. Great.
Okay, so is that a motion, Cliff?
Yeah, it's a motion.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Great. So we're adjourning at 2:03, and I will stop the recording.